Hey everybody, welcome back to my little shop remodel. I've made some changes since the last time you saw it. I added this piece of sheet aluminum that I happen to have to the top of the Vevor welding table, not because I really needed it or needed it to be sturdy, but just as I was working there, every time I'd try and clean it off, all the debris fell through all the holes onto my welders, which really annoyed me. So I bought the little Akatsuyo 66 pound off from Vevor, and it ain't 66 pounds, it's more like 58 or 59, and I made a hardy hole tool for it to just get some bending I want done, and that didn't do these. What did those was another little tool I added in. I picked up used, and you're not going to believe it, I picked up this used from can't even think of the name of them now, not Facebook Marketplace, the other one where you list stuff. This Bailey ring bender, which goes for about 260 bucks new, they're made in the USA. I picked it up for 40 bucks on that little homemade stand. I also went out into my storage unit and I drug my old 12-ton Harbor Freight press out, and yeah, this thing is so old that it all used to be this orange color, and now most of it's yellow. I originally bought this to bend up some beep blanks, and I'm making a beeping sound because that noise is where the words would be, that the kind of words that YouTube doesn't like. When I got those bending up those beep blanks, I wound up selling the tooling, which I wish I hadn't done now, but I did, and I kept the little 12-ton press to do some other things. So the point of this video, I've got some steel here I picked up, and I want to turn this steel into a bending jig. So I watched a bunch of different videos on people who have already done this thing, and most people did it for the 20-ton Harbor Freight press, which is a little bit bigger. I don't have one of those. I'm not going to have one of those. I'm going to use this one because I'm only using light gauge material. That's not something I need to worry about. But I said this was almost the perfect length for a top die. It's not. It's actually too long because I have to have a piece of this on each end. And as you can see, I don't have enough room. So I need to shorten that by at least the thickness, the width, or excuse me, the diameter of this pipe. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut. It is about 6:30 in the evening. My back is barking. Although I gotta say, physical therapy that with my doctor sent me out to for my back, it's making a big difference. My back is taking a lot longer to bark, and it doesn't bark as much, but it is barking. So let me show you real quick what I got in mind if you didn't already glean it from what I said before. This is going to be my bottom die plate. These two pieces of angle are going to make up, welded onto my bottom plate are going to make up my bottom die. See if they'll sit there. These two pieces are going to go there and there. This is my top die, if I can pick it up. I'm going to grind a knife point on this at a 45-degree angle with the point in the center, and this is going to push down in there and fold the metal. Now, these pieces are going to weld onto the end of there, and the springs are going to go there. I hope I left enough room for everything. And there, I'm not sure I did, but I can grind things a little shorter if I have to. Then the top die sits on the top. I'm going to weld that on the top of there because that's where the press ram is going to go into, and then that's going to be a bending die, I hope. Anyway, that's it for this evening. I'm going to come out tomorrow and start tacking it all up. Okay, so what I feared was going to be the most onerous part of this whole job, and that was grinding the bevel down this plate, and this is a piece of 5/8 plate. And I just picked up stuff off the remnant table and the remnant racks off my local steel shop. So I never got the exact pieces I wanted, but I figured they'd all be close enough. And I'll get some dimensions in here too. So what I did with this, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be nice if I could find some way to carve off those chunks to get my initial angles and then work it with a grinder or a file. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to hurt myself or break something or have to start over. So I thought, let's just do the grinder. So what I did was I took my favorite method of scribing, which is this cheap old barked up Craftsman dial caliper. I set it to half the thickness of the material and I scribed myself a line all the way down the center. And I worked this with an angle grinder and a grinding wheel, and I tried to stay at least a 1/16 of an inch back from my scribe line and going up and down both sides. And just for the record, I used this craptastic Harbor Freight $14.99 angle grinder, and the only reason I bought that angle grinder was because I needed the adapters in the box. The adapters by themselves cost $10, and I picked up this $14.99 angle grinder on sale for $9.99, so I pretty much got a free angle grinder. And I have been actively trying to wreck that thing, and I cannot. I ground with that thing here today, and it's taken me the better part of the day to do this. I ground with this thing multiple times until it was too hot to hold on to, even with gloves on. And oh, and it's got the wheel, the grinding wheel that came with my Hart battery powered grinder. Obviously, battery powered grinder for this isn't going to work unless you had 20 batteries, because this was a lot of grinding. I mean, you could see some of what I've swept up from it. So I stayed well back from my scribe line. I used some paint, as you can see it on the side. I used some paint to when I needed to adjust my angles. I've got one of these here, which I would put across there to check my angles, and then I'd put a light dusting of paint on it so I know I'd be grinding where I wanted it to. And then when I got close, I kept going up one side, down the other, till I brought my grinding in to where that scribed line was, not touching it, because I know if I go across it, I'm going to wind up with a low spot. And as you can see, I hope, I did not wind up with a low spot. And then when I got it to the point where both sides were almost touching that scribed line, I like maybe had a 1/16 at the most and more like a 32nd down there. I went ahead and I actually got the Hart battery powered grinder with a fairly worn out flap disc on it, and I went across it to smooth it up on both sides and give me a nice finish on it and a nice smooth edge. So that took the better part of the day. It's over 100 out today again. I think it's 101 or something like that. So I've had to stop fairly often to let both the grinder and myself cool down. And but I think I finally got that the way I liked it. So let me get you some measurements here on this stuff in case you want to make one. This is a top die. As I said, it is 5/8 piece of 5/8 plate. I think 1/2 inch would have worked fine, but it's so this piece of plate is 13.5, a little less than 13.5 now, and it is, like I said, I was just grabbing what was on the remnant pile. It's 4 inches wide, and I picked this size of angle, and the angle is 1.5 by 1.5, and the pieces are 14 inches long. And I picked it because I knew that across this way, hard to do this stuff while you're holding the camera in one hand, that this way it was going to be 2 inches across the legs, and that would fit on the base of this. Now the base of this is a piece of, and I think this is 3/8 plate. If it'll stand up, I'll measure it. Will you stand up? You will. I'm pretty sure this is 3/8 plate. Tape is not cooperating with me today, is it? So, yeah, this is 3/8 plate, and it is just a piece of 3/8 by 4 flat bar, and this particular chunk I cut down to 16.5 inches because it needs to be the full width of that opening. Now my uprights that are going to go on either end, and all I really needed was one piece of pipe that would fit inside of another. Or tubing. Tubing is measured by its OD, pipe is measured by the ID. So I didn't really care what size it was as long as it wasn't huge or tiny, but I got 1 1/4 OD tubing there and 1-inch tubing there. And the small pieces that I'm going to weld onto here, like that, these are going to be 4 inches or very close to it. And these longer pieces, I just kind of winged it here. Those are, I made those 8.5 because that seemed like a good measurement to me. And then this little piece here, I'm going to weld to the bottom of there just for the ram to fit into, so the thing doesn't try and scoot off the ram. And it's just a, what did I make it, 2 inches? 2 inches. It's just a 2-inch piece of that 1¼ inch pipe. These springs I got at Ace Hardware. They were like $3.50 each. They are 4.5 inches long, and they have an inside diameter of 1 inch, so they fit over this 1-inch tube really nicely. But this tube, of course, will not. So they're going to work perfect. What else? I think that's it. Those are all pretty much all the pieces to this. It is really pretty simple. And I don't know if I'm going to start welding it today. I may come out later and tack the pieces together. But it's, what is it now? It's about 2:30, 2:45 now. I'm soaked in sweat. I need to take a break. So I may come back out after dinner, which I have been doing a lot lately, and I may come out after dinner and tack this thing all together. I've kind of got it tacked together here just looking at it, and as you can see, I've got some issues. And one of the problems I'm having is I had made a change, planning on changing everything after, and then I forgot and went with my original plans and lengths. And so now, and I also goofed up a cut on this that you can see over here, which made this a tiny bit shorter, and it was already going to be too short because of that change I made. So because of that, and these springs are way too long. I mean, I probably only need 4 coils off of this, which probably about half of each one, and even that might be too much. So I'm going to cut those. But as you can see, these pieces are supposed to weld, these pieces are supposed to weld to that main thing, to that main top die, and they're going to be a bit too short. So what am I going to do about that? And also, my springs don't quite fit down in there as well as I would like. I'm not really sure I need to do anything about that. That can stay like that. It doesn't really matter. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to weld a full-length piece of that on. I think I'm going to cut one of these in half and just weld it at the top. That'll give me more room for my spring. And then I think what else I'm going to do is take some pieces of this and just make some kind of wings to go out to hold this to the main die. And I mean, that's fine. This is only a guide. There really is no, the only stress on that is the spring pushing upward, and I don't think that's going to give me any issues. I mean, if it does, I'll have to think of something else. Of course, considering how short these pieces are going to be, I could probably just weld these on like that, and that would solve any issue. So anyway, I could also cut these back. I could also go buy another piece of steel plate and spend another half a day or more grinding another V into it, which I am absolutely not going to do. One, because I'm cheap. Two, because that was a real pain in the tush. So I'm going to take the cheap way, easy way out. I'm going to cut one of these in half. I'm going to weld them near the top. That'll give me room for my spring, and it should cure my other problems as well, at least well enough for this to work. So here it is. What do you think? Yes, I know it's ugly, but this is a version 1 tool, and were I to be making this for a client, I would probably take this over to the scrap pile or just keep it for myself and use what I learned making this one to make another one. One thing I do like about it is I think I can leave my springs full length. See if I can compress them all the way down. Yeah, I can leave my springs full length, which I like. I got enough wobble in it where everything is going to kind of eventually line itself up. It's still just tacked, and I got some cleanup to do. There's some spatter over it. Oh, and the aluminum sheet's working out really well. all the spatter and crap doesn't fall through to my welding machines on the lower shelf, and it doesn't stick to the aluminum. So we'll just see how long it lasts. I'm going to take this over to the press and let's see if it fits and works. I'm obviously not going to be bending anything with it while it's only tack welded together, but we can at least see how it fits and how it goes up and down. Okay, here it is. I think I'm still going to have some adjustments to do. I wish this had only been 3" instead of like 4", but yeah, I think I'm going to have to lower this bar down 1 step and then put something, maybe these V-blocks or a piece of something else in it to support it, because this is open underneath and that's only supported on the very edge. But that doesn't really work. I don't really have to worry about that here for this test, and that's something can happen later. So let's tighten it up and let's pump it. I'm sitting here looking at it going, God, I hope that bottle jack has enough range. And I'll speed this up because I know more than enough. Yeah, I bottomed out right there in that, and yeah, I still got lots. Still got lots. I'm not going to shove it down hard enough to break all the tacks, obviously, but let's test our springs too. Look at that, huh? Look at that. Okay, I'm actually liking that. It's ugly, but I'm actually liking it. So I'm going to get it welded up and maybe paint it a little bit, and we'll maybe try it on something, give it some bending. Okay, it's the next morning and it's only 86 degrees out, so I want to take the opportunity to get this thing welded up while I can stand to wear all the welding gear. And I did make a couple small changes. I did cut these springs down a bit. That let this sit down lower, the top die, without having to compress the springs, and that did 2 things for me. It gave me a great handle on either side when you're weaseling in and out of the press. It also, by setting this lower, it let me put those V-blocks underneath of it to support the bottom of the press and still let me slide it in without having to move the whole bottom of the press to a lower hole. So one thing I wish I had done, I wish before I had got these tacked in and everything lined up, I wish I had taken these angles to the belt sander and smoothed that all up really well, but I didn't. And if I do it now, I'll have to do it by hand because I don't think a flap disc will fit down in there, but I might give it a shot. Anyway, I'm going to get this welded up real quick and then we'll clean the spatter off it and give it a try. So there it all is, all done. She's a beauty, eh? I even painted it up for you guys. And I know I live in Arizona. I really don't need to paint stuff, but I lived for many, many years in a humid environment, and I'm still used to painting stuff so it doesn't rust, because, you know, in the Seattle area, if you didn't paint it and you came back, you went to work for a couple days and come back, it would be rusty. So, but nonetheless, I painted it. Let's give it a shot. I have some pieces of material here. I have some of that thin gauge aluminum that I made the back panel cover where when I cut the hole in the back of the Jeep for the fuel sending unit, I made it out of that. This is a piece of what went on my welding table. This is probably 10 gauge-ish, right in there. I have a piece of what I'm guessing is probably 16 or 18 gauge sheet metal that I had been using as a spatter shield. And I have a piece of 3/16 by 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch flat bar. So let's give it a try. Let's start with the aluminum because I think it's going to have no problems bending the aluminum. I tighten that, I did. So we'll just put a bend in the aluminum. And we'll go all the way down until it stops nice and tight. Shouldn't have gone back that far though. And there you go. That's not a perfect 90, but it's pretty darn close. What do you think? I think that bent that really nice. Let's try that piece of sheet metal. Let's go in like this. Let's go in about halfway. Let me get my hand around back. Let's get about the halfway mark. That's probably about halfway. Let's get it fairly straight. And let's see what it does with that. I shouldn't have let that all the way back up, but oh well. I'm sure you'll forgive me. I can go down pretty quick. And then we'll do that chunk of flat bar. That's pretty much it right there. That should be enough to get it out, I hope. There we go. And there we go. Who is it who says that? Some Canadian guy on the internet. AVE probably. There you go. Let's try the flat bar. Oh, this is fairly thick. This isn't quarter. I thought it was when I bought it, but I think it's 3/16. But gonna have to let it up a bit. Let's get it in there and let's see how it works. I don't want to waste any more of this than I have to, so I'm only going to go in a little bit because I'm a cheapskate. You guys know that by now. And here we go. Let's kind of get it straight. Probably should have put it in the middle and I didn't, but it's pretty tight. Maybe should have left those springs a little longer. And there you go, 3/16 flat bar. That's pretty damn close to being a 90. Not 100%, but boy, it's right there. I'm pretty happy with the way that bent that. And here's that. That bent that along its full length really nicely. And of course the aluminum was a piece of cake for it, without a doubt. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this build. I know I am going to be using this a bunch, and it sure is going to make a lot of things a whole bunch easier for me. Instead of putting stuff in the vise or pounding it, or over on the anvil and pounding it, or trying to heat it. Remember when I was trying to bend this stuff? If you guys watched my Jeep video when I was trying to make the mounts for the 3-point harnesses, I was having to bend this stuff, and man, I was having a hell of a time bending it. I wound up cutting it and bending it cutting it part way through and bending it and then welding the cut back up. I don't have to do that anymore. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I'll be happy to answer anything I can. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.